Walking into my childhood home after my MBA graduation ceremony, cap and gown still draped over my arm, I never expected to find legal documents scattered across the kitchen table. Thompson Family Construction. The business I had poured my heart into for 5 years now officially belonged to my younger sister, Madison. My mother, Patricia, looked up from her coffee with cold eyes and delivered the words that shattered everything I believed about my family. "You're just good with your hands, not your brain, Genevieve. Madison has the leadership qualities our clients expect." After 60 unpaid hours every week while earning my degree at night, I discovered they never intended me to inherit what I helped build. The kitchen felt smaller somehow as I stared at those papers, my graduation cap slipping from numb fingers onto the hardwood floor. 5 years of my life reduced to meaningless scribbles on legal documents that would never bear my name. 5 years of crawling out of bed at 4:30 in the morning, pulling on steel-toed boots and hard hats, then racing to evening classes, still covered in sawdust and concrete dust. Thompson Family Construction had been struggling when I first joined after high school. Dad's company was just another small contractor fighting for scraps in a competitive market. I had started by organizing the tool inventory, but quickly noticed inefficiencies everywhere. Supply orders arrived late because nobody tracked delivery schedules. Project timelines stretched because materials sat in wrong locations. Workers stood around waiting for instructions because communication between crews was non-existent. While Madison was finishing her art history degree at a private college 3 states away, I was revolutionizing our operations from the ground up. I developed digital tracking systems for materials, streamlined vendor relationships, and created scheduling protocols that cut project completion times by 20%. My innovations saved the Riverside Medical Center expansion when the original timeline threatened massive penalty fees. I had suggested switching to modular construction techniques that reduced on-site work by 6 weeks. The Grandview Elementary School renovation was another success story built on my problem-solving abilities. When underground utility lines weren't where the city maps indicated, I coordinated with municipal engineers to develop alternative routing that kept the project on schedule. The school district was so impressed they recommended us for 3 additional projects worth over $2 million. But apparently none of that mattered now. Madison waltzed through the front door 20 minutes later, designer purse slung over her shoulder and perfectly manicured nails tapping against her phone screen. She barely glanced at me before launching into excited chatter about her new corner office and the important client meeting scheduled for tomorrow morning. "Wait!" I interrupted, my voice sharper than intended. "What client meeting?" Patricia's expression tightened almost imperceptibly. "Madison has been building relationships with our key accounts. She understands the importance of professional presentation." My stomach dropped as puzzle pieces began clicking into place. Which key accounts? Riverside Development Corporation for one. Madison said, seemingly oblivious to the tension crackling between Patricia and me. "Jonathan Pierce has been so helpful explaining the industry dynamics. He says I have natural instincts for client relations." Riverside Development was our biggest client, representing 30% of our annual revenue. I had personally managed their account for 3 years, developing cost-effective solutions that saved them hundreds of thousands of dollars. Jonathan Pierce had never mentioned working with Madison during any of our project meetings. "When did these conversations start?" I asked, though I already dreaded the answer. "About 6 months ago," Madison replied cheerfully. "Patricia thought it would be good for me to understand the business before taking over. Jonathan has been incredibly generous with his time." 6 months. Every client meeting I had been excluded from suddenly made perfect sense. Every time Patricia insisted I focus on field operations while she handled client relations. Every occasion when important decisions were made without my input, despite my intimate knowledge of project details. They had been systematically erasing me from the business relationships I had helped build. I excused myself and went upstairs to my childhood bedroom, which still contained my old high school basketball trophies and faded science fair ribbons. Sitting on the twin bed where I had studied countless nights, I opened my laptop and accessed the company email system I had helped design. Madison's inbox contained dozens of exchanges with Jonathan Pierce dating back exactly 6 months, detailed discussions about project specifications, budget considerations, and timeline adjustments, information that could only have come from someone with access to confidential company files. Many of the innovative solutions Pierce praised Madison for developing were strategies I had proposed in internal meetings months earlier. My hands trembled as I scrolled through message after message, watching my ideas attributed to my sister. The cost-saving modifications for the Grandview Plaza project, the alternative materials sourcing that reduced expenses by 15%, the workflow optimizations that improved crew efficiency, all presented as Madison's original thinking. Patricia must have been feeding her information, coaching her responses, creating an illusion of competence where none existed. Madison wasn't malicious, just naive enough to believe she had naturally developed expertise that actually took years to acquire. The betrayal cut deeper than I had imagined possible. This wasn't simply favoritism or poor judgment. This was calculated manipulation designed to steal credit for my contributions while positioning Madison as the logical successor. I packed 3 suitcases that night, taking only clothes and personal items I had purchased with my own money. The family photos stayed behind. The childhood mementos remained untouched. I was no longer part of this family's future, so their past held no comfort. Patricia found me loading boxes into my car the next morning. "You're overreacting, Genevieve. Family businesses require difficult decisions." Difficult decisions. I repeated, slamming the trunk harder than necessary. "Is that what you call stealing my work and giving it to Madison?" "Nobody stole anything. Madison has been contributing her own ideas." Ideas she couldn't possibly have developed without access to confidential project files. Patricia's mask slipped for just a moment, revealing something cold and calculating underneath. Madison represents the future of this company. Clients prefer working with people who understand professional expectations. Professional expectations, as if my MBA meant nothing, as if 5 years of successful project management counted for nothing, as if saving the company from bankruptcy through innovation and hard work was somehow less valuable than Madison's ability to smile prettily during lunch meetings. I drove away without looking back, leaving behind everything I had thought was my destiny. My new apartment was a cramped studio downtown, furnished with secondhand furniture from estate sales and thrift stores. After sleeping in a 4-bedroom house with custom millwork and granite countertops, the adjustment to 800 square feet of generic beige walls and laminate flooring felt like exile. But independence had unexpected sweetness. Nobody questioned my decisions or undermined my judgment. Nobody dismissed my ideas before I finished explaining them. Nobody made me feel like an unwelcome guest in my own life. I established a freelance consulting practice within days, leveraging relationships with subcontractors and suppliers who respected my expertise. Small renovation projects and efficiency audits provided enough income to cover basic expenses while I planned my next move. Word spread quickly through the construction community that Harold Thompson's daughter was available for independent work. The call came on a Tuesday morning, exactly 1 week after I left. Dad's number appeared on my phone screen while I was reviewing blueprints for a kitchen remodel across town. His voice sounded strained and older than I remembered. "Genevieve, we need to talk." "About what?" "Grandview Plaza is failing inspection. The foundation has serious structural issues." My pencil stopped moving across the blueprints. Grandview Plaza was Riverside Development's flagship project, a mixed-use complex worth $50 million that would define downtown revitalization efforts for the next decade. Thompson Construction's reputation depended on successful completion. What kind of issues? Settlement problems, cracks in the foundation walls. The city inspector red-tagged the entire site yesterday. I closed my eyes and saw the original soil reports from 18 months ago. unstable clay composition with high moisture content. I had recommended additional soil stabilization and deeper foundation footings to compensate for the challenging conditions. My suggestions had been noted in project files, but apparently never implemented. Where's Madison? She's supposed to be handling client relations now. Harold's pause stretched uncomfortably long. Madison doesn't have the technical background to address these problems. The inspector wants detailed engineering analysis and remediation plans within 2 weeks, or the project gets shut down permanently. And you're calling me because you know this project better than anyone. You understand the soil conditions and the original design specifications. I understood much more than that. I understood that Madison's art history degree hadn't prepared her for structural engineering challenges. I understood that Patricia's confidence in her daughter's natural abilities meant nothing when concrete started cracking. I understood that all their dismissive comments about my hands-on experience suddenly seemed less relevant when actual expertise was required. Let me get this straight. For months you've been telling everyone that Madison has the leadership qualities and business acumen to run the company. Now when there's a real problem, you want me to fix it. This isn't about pride, Genevieve. Riverside is threatening to sue us for breach of contract if we can't resolve this situation. The penalty clauses could bankrupt the company. Bankruptcy. The word hung in the air like smoke from a house fire. Thompson Construction employed 23 people, most of whom had families depending on steady income. Skilled craftsmen like Eddie Sanchez and Tom Bailey had worked for Dad for over 15 years. They deserved better than unemployment because of Patricia's manipulations. What does Madison say about the situation? Another long pause. Madison thinks we can hire outside consultants to develop solutions. Outside consultants who would charge premium rates for analysis I could provide immediately. Outside consultants who lacked familiarity with the specific challenges of this project. Outside consultants who might recommend expensive remediation measures that more efficient solutions could avoid. And Patricia, your mother believes this is a temporary setback that proper management can overcome. Proper management. As if management techniques could retroactively stabilize unstable soil or repair improper foundation construction. As if positive thinking could solve engineering problems that required technical expertise and practical experience. I'll consider helping under certain conditions. What conditions? Public acknowledgement of my contributions to company success over the past 5 years, equal partnership in Thompson Construction, with authority to make operational decisions. Madison can keep her title, but actual project management returns to people with relevant qualifications. The silence stretched so long I thought the call had disconnected. Those terms aren't acceptable, Harold finally said. Madison has invested considerable time building client relationships. We can't undermine her position now. Then find someone else to save your company. I hung up before he could respond, but my hands were shaking as I set the phone down. Cutting ties with Thompson Construction meant abandoning everything I had worked to build. Those projects represented years of problem-solving and innovation. Those client relationships were based on trust I had earned through competence and reliability. That evening, I researched Riverside Development Corporation more thoroughly than I ever had as their contractor. Property acquisition records, development permits, financial partnerships, corporate structure. What I discovered in public databases made my blood run cold. Jonathan Pierce wasn't just Riverside's CEO. 6 months ago, he had filed incorporation papers for Pierce Development LLC, a competing construction company targeting commercial projects in our regional market. The same 6 months Madison had been building her relationship with him. The timing wasn't coincidental. Pierce Development's corporate filings revealed a silent partner listed only as P. Thompson with a 30% ownership stake, Patricia. My mother had secretly invested in a company designed to compete directly with Thompson Construction, while simultaneously undermining my role in the family business. The betrayal was more calculated than I had imagined possible. This wasn't simply favoritism toward Madison or misguided belief in her capabilities. This was systematic destruction orchestrated by my own mother for financial gain. I spent 3 days piecing together the full scope of their operation. Banking records showed Patricia had withdrawn over $200,000 from company accounts over 6 months disguised as equipment purchases and contract payments that never materialized. Those funds had been transferred to Pierce Development as initial investment capital. Pierce Development's client list included 4 companies that had recently canceled contracts with Thompson Construction, citing concerns about project management capabilities. Companies I had worked with successfully for years who suddenly developed reservations about our services after private conversations with Jonathan Pierce. The pattern was clear. Patricia provided Pierce with confidential information about Thompson's bid's client relationships and project specifications. Pierce used that intelligence to underbid our proposals or identify weaknesses he could exploit. Patricia profited from both Thompson's contracts and Pierce's competitive advantages. Madison was the perfect cover story. Who would suspect treachery from a mother promoting her daughter's career advancement? Patricia could position herself as a protective parent while actually serving as Pierce's inside source. But the Grandview Plaza project created an unexpected problem. Pierce needed Thompson Construction to fail dramatically and publicly to justify stealing our remaining clients. A simple business failure wouldn't generate the industry-wide reputation damage he required. He needed a catastrophic project collapse that would permanently destroy Harold's credibility. The foundation problems weren't accidental. Pierce had access to our original soil reports and engineering specifications through Patricia. He knew exactly which corners could be cut to create structural failures that would appear to result from Thompson's incompetence rather than deliberate sabotage. I drove to Pierce's office building downtown, a gleaming glass tower that symbolized everything wrong with modern construction priorities: style over substance appearance, over engineering integrity, profit over craftsmanship. The reception area featured marble floors and abstract sculptures that probably cost more than Thompson Construction's annual equipment budget. Pierce's secretary announced my arrival with obvious confusion. "Ms. Thompson is here to see you, but she doesn't have an appointment." He emerged from his corner office with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. Mid-50s, silver hair, expensive suit that couldn't hide the soft physique of someone who spent more time in boardrooms than on construction sites. "Genevieve Thompson, I've heard quite a lot about you." "I'm sure you have." His office overlooked the construction site where Thompson crews were struggling with Grandview Plaza's foundation problems. Through floor-to-ceiling windows, I could see concrete trucks idle, while engineers argued over remediation strategies. "Unfortunate situation developing over there," Pierce said, following my gaze. "Your father's company seems to be having difficulties with quality control." Quality control issues that could have been prevented with proper soil stabilization. Indeed, though I understand the project specifications were developed collaboratively with input from multiple stakeholders. Multiple stakeholders, including himself, though he obviously wasn't going to admit that directly. "I'm curious about Pierce Development," I said, settling into the leather chair across from his desk. "Impressive growth rate for a 6-month-old company. We've been fortunate to find excellent partners and advisors. Patricia Thompson, for example." Pierce's expression tightened almost imperceptibly. "Your mother has valuable insights into regional construction markets. Insights she gained through 30 years of marriage to Harold Thompson." Business relationships often evolve in unexpected directions. I leaned forward slightly. "What happens to those relationships when Thompson Construction fails?" "That would be unfortunate for everyone involved. Your father has built an admirable company over the years." But admirable companies sometimes make fatal mistakes. Foundation problems at Grandview Plaza could destroy Thompson's reputation permanently. Pierce nodded sympathetically. "Construction is a demanding industry that requires constant attention to detail. Even experienced companies can encounter unexpected challenges. Challenges that competing firms might be positioned to address." Pierce Development would certainly be willing to assist with any projects Thompson Construction can no longer handle. The conversation felt like verbal chess, each comment carrying multiple layers of meaning neither of us acknowledged directly. Pierce was measuring my intentions while I gathered confirmation of his involvement in Thompson's systematic destruction. Madison seems to be adjusting well to her new responsibilities, I said. Your sister has impressive natural instincts for client relations, though technical expertise requires years to develop fully. Technical expertise like understanding soil conditions and foundation requirements. Precisely. Those skills distinguish successful contractors from those who encounter unexpected setbacks. Pierce walked me to the elevator with promises to stay in touch and suggestions that Pierce Development might have consulting opportunities for someone with my background. The offer felt like recruitment for my own family's destruction. That evening, I called Patricia's cell phone and suggested we meet for dinner. Neutral territory, public location opportunity to observe her reactions without Harold or Madison present. She agreed readily, probably hoping to negotiate my return to Thompson Construction on terms favorable to her long-term strategy. We met at Rosario's, an upscale Italian restaurant where Patricia could maintain her image as successful businesswoman while discussing family matters. She arrived wearing jewelry I hadn't seen before, probably purchased with profits from betraying her husband's company. I'm glad you called, she began over appetizers. This family conflict has gone on long enough. Has it? Harold misses your contributions, and Madison could benefit from your technical guidance. There's room for both daughters in Thompson Construction's future, as long as I accept a subordinate role. As long as you understand business realities, client relationships require careful management. Client relationships with Jonathan Pierce specifically. Patricia's fork paused halfway to her mouth. Jonathan has been helpful connecting Madison with industry contacts. Industry contacts who might prefer working with Pierce Development instead of Thompson Construction. I don't know what you're implying. I'm implying that Pierce Development's remarkable success in 6 months suggests access to confidential information that competing firms normally can't obtain. Patricia set down her fork and studied my face carefully. You sound paranoid, Genevieve. Business competition is natural in this industry. Business competition, yes. Industrial espionage, no. Nobody is engaging in espionage. Pierce Development wins contracts through superior client service. Client service informed by inside knowledge of Thompson's bids, specifications, and strategic plans. Patricia's composure cracked slightly. You're imagining conspiracies that don't exist. Am I, because Pierce Development's corporate filings list P. Thompson as a 30% partner, and banking records show Patricia Thompson transferred $200,000 from Thompson Construction accounts to Pierce Development over 6 months. The color drained from Patricia's face. You've been investigating private business records. Public business records. Corporate filings are available to anyone who knows where to look. She stared at me for several seconds without speaking, calculating risks and potential responses. Finally, she leaned forward with the cold determination I remembered from childhood arguments. Thompson Construction is dying, Genevieve. Harold's old-fashioned approaches can't compete in modern markets. Pierce Development represents evolution. Evolution that destroys my father's life work. Evolution that preserves family financial security. When Thompson fails, Pierce Development will acquire the valuable assets and continue serving established clients. While Madison takes the blame for management failures she couldn't possibly have prevented, Madison will learn from the experience and develop stronger business instincts. I felt sick listening to Patricia's casual dismissal of the destruction she was orchestrating. Harold's reputation, Madison's confidence, 23 employees' livelihoods, all sacrificed for Patricia's profit partnership with Pierce. What about the foundation problems at Grandview Plaza? Engineering challenges that demonstrate Thompson's declining capabilities. Engineering challenges that could have been prevented if Pierce hadn't convinced you to cut corners on soil stabilization. Patricia's mask slipped completely. You can't prove Pierce influenced any construction decisions. I can prove Pierce had access to confidential specifications before construction began. I can prove Patricia Thompson provided him with information that allowed him to identify cost-cutting opportunities. I can prove Pierce Development benefits directly from Thompson Construction's failure. Patricia stood abruptly, throwing her napkin onto the table. You're threatening your own family. I'm protecting my family from someone who's been systematically destroying it. She left without paying for dinner or acknowledging my existence. I sat alone finishing my pasta while planning the most important strategic campaign of my life. I spent 4 sleepless nights developing a plan that could save Thompson Construction while destroying Pierce Development's credibility. Direct confrontation would accomplish nothing except alerting Pierce and Patricia to prepare defensive strategies. Legal action would take months while Grandview Plaza's foundation problems required immediate solutions. But Patricia had revealed Pierce's vulnerability during our dinner conversation. Pierce Development was built on stolen intelligence and fraudulent competitive advantages. Remove those advantages by feeding him false information, and his company would collapse from its own incompetence. The strategy required me to become a double agent within my own family's conspiracy. I researched Pierce's background more thoroughly, discovering financial pressure from investors who expected rapid return on their Pierce Development capital. His previous company had failed after losing 3 major contracts due to cost overruns and schedule delays. Pierce Development represented his last opportunity to establish credibility in regional construction markets. His partnership with Patricia was equally precarious. Corporate records showed he owed significant debts to business associates who weren't known for patient collection strategies. Pierce needed Thompson Construction to fail within months, not years, to satisfy financial obligations threatening his personal safety. I crafted a careful approach designed to exploit Pierce's desperation while appearing to join his scheme against my family. The performance required convincing Pierce that family betrayal had poisoned me against Harold and Madison, while making Patricia believe I was too naive to understand her true intentions. Thursday morning, I waited outside Pierce's favorite coffee shop until he arrived for his routine 8 o'clock meeting with development partners. I had observed his schedule for 3 days, learning patterns that would make our encounter seem coincidental rather than planned. Mr. Pierce Genevieve Thompson, we met briefly at your office yesterday. He looked surprised but not displeased. Of course, Genevieve. Grabbing coffee before another busy day. Actually, I was hoping we might have a conversation about opportunities you mentioned. Pierce's eyes sharpened with interest. Perhaps we could sit for a few minutes. We found a corner table where conversation couldn't be overheard by other customers. I launched into the performance I had rehearsed dozens of times, presenting myself as a bitter daughter, seeking revenge against the family that had undervalued her contributions. I've been thinking about what you said regarding technical expertise and business success. 5 years of my life invested in Thompson Construction, and they give the company to Madison without discussion or consideration. That must be deeply frustrating. Frustrating doesn't begin to describe it. I developed most of the innovations that saved Thompson from bankruptcy, and Patricia dismisses me as someone who's good with her hands but lacks business intelligence. Pierce nodded sympathetically while obviously calculating how my resentment might benefit his plans. Your technical knowledge could be valuable to the right organization. Technical knowledge that includes intimate familiarity with Thompson's operations, client relationships, and strategic weaknesses. Indeed. I leaned forward conspiratorially. What if Thompson Construction's failure could be accelerated through inside assistance? Pierce's coffee cup paused halfway to his lips. That's an interesting theoretical question. Not theoretical, practical. Someone with access to confidential information could identify vulnerabilities that competitors might exploit. Such assistance would obviously require appropriate compensation. Obviously. Pierce suggested we continue our discussion over lunch later that week, away from public spaces, where business conversations might be overheard. I agreed eagerly, playing the role of angry daughter, ready to betray family loyalty for personal advancement. That evening, I called Patricia and arranged another dinner meeting, this time suggesting I might be willing to return to Thompson Construction under modified terms. She agreed immediately, probably hoping to neutralize my threat to her Pierce Development partnership. We met at Sullivan's Steakhouse, an establishment where Patricia could display her growing affluence while discussing family reconciliation. She wore a new dress and different jewelry, subtle signs of prosperity that couldn't be explained through Harold's struggling company finances. "I've been reconsidering our last conversation," I began. Perhaps I was too hasty in rejecting compromise solutions. "I'm pleased to hear that. Thompson Construction is family legacy. Despite recent disappointments, I don't want to see it destroyed by outside competition." Patricia's relief was palpable. "Harold will be thrilled to have you back." Though I remain concerned about Madison's technical qualifications for project management responsibilities. Madison is learning quickly. Jonathan Pierce has been very helpful, mentoring her through complex client relationships. Pierce seems unusually invested in Thompson Construction's success. Patricia's expression tightened slightly. Jonathan understands the value of collaborative relationships within the construction community. Collaborative relationships that might include profit-sharing arrangements. I don't know what you mean. Pierce Development's rapid growth suggests strategic advantages that new companies normally don't possess. Access to confidential competitor information, for example. You're making wild accusations again. I softened my tone, presenting myself as naive family member, finally understanding sophisticated business practices. I'm not making accusations. I'm trying to understand opportunities that might benefit everyone involved. Patricia studied my face carefully, searching for signs of deception or hidden agendas. What kind of opportunities? If Pierce Development represents Thompson Construction's future evolution, perhaps current family members could participate in that transition rather than being excluded from it. Participate how? Provide inside information that helps Pierce Development identify Thompson's vulnerabilities while positioning family members for leadership roles in the new organization. Patricia's surprise was genuine. She had expected continued resistance to Pierce's plans, not eager collaboration from the daughter she considered dangerously idealistic. Such collaboration would require absolute discretion. Of course. And complete loyalty to family financial interests rather than sentimental attachments to Harold's outdated approaches. I understand. Patricia agreed to arrange a meeting with Pierce where we could discuss specific ways I might contribute to Thompson Construction's transition to Pierce Development control. She left dinner believing she had successfully recruited me as an ally in her husband's destruction. I drove home planning the most complex deception of my life. Pierce, Patricia, and I met 3 days later in Pierce Development's conference room, ostensibly to discuss my role in facilitating Thompson Construction's failure. I brought detailed files containing what appeared to be confidential company information, but was actually carefully constructed disinformation designed to mislead Pierce into catastrophic strategic errors. Genevieve has reconsidered her position regarding family business evolution, Patricia explained to Pierce. Excellent. Your expertise could accelerate our timeline significantly. I presented falsified documents suggesting Thompson Construction was pursuing emergency bank loans to cover Grandview Plaza remediation costs. The fabricated financial records indicated Harold was prepared to risk company bankruptcy rather than admit engineering failures to Riverside Development. If Harold proceeds with these loan applications, Thompson will be vulnerable to immediate foreclosure when Grandview Plaza's problems prove unfixable. I explained. Pierce studied the fake documents with obvious satisfaction. Timeline for this financial collapse. 2 weeks maximum. Harold has scheduled loan officer meetings for next Tuesday and Wednesday. Excellent. Pierce Development should be positioned to acquire Thompson's contracts immediately when bankruptcy proceedings begin. Patricia looked troubled by the accelerated timeline, but didn't voice objections while Pierce was present. She probably wanted more time to extract additional funds from Thompson's accounts before Harold discovered her betrayal. I spent the following week feeding Pierce false information about Thompson's client relationships, employee loyalty, and financial resources. Every report painted Thompson Construction as weaker and more vulnerable than actual circumstances, suggested encouraging Pierce to make aggressive competitive moves that would expose his fraudulent practices. Meanwhile, I secretly worked on engineering solutions for Grandview Plaza's foundation problems. The remediation required innovative techniques that combined my technical knowledge with creative problem-solving approaches Pierce couldn't duplicate. When the final confrontation came, I would need practical solutions to support my accusations against Pierce and Patricia. The trap was set. Pierce Development was committed to strategies based on false intelligence, while Thompson Construction's real problems remained solvable through expertise Pierce didn't possess. Patricia believed she had converted me into an ally while actually positioning herself for public exposure as a traitor to her own family. All that remained was perfect timing and flawless execution. The emergency meeting took place in Riverside Development's executive conference room on a gray Friday morning that felt heavy with approaching storms. Pierce had requested the session to discuss Grandview Plaza's foundation crisis and explore alternative solutions that might salvage the troubled project. Harold arrived looking exhausted and older than his 62 years. 2 weeks of engineering consultations and failed remediation attempts had drained his usual optimism. Madison accompanied him, wearing a brave smile that couldn't hide her obvious terror at being responsible for managing a $50 million disaster she didn't understand. Patricia entered with Pierce, both projecting confident authority that made my stomach churn with anticipated justice. They had no idea that their conspiracy was about to explode in the most public possible venue. Riverside Development's board members filled the remaining seats: CEO Jonathan Pierce, CFO Sarah Chen, Project Director Michael Rodriguez, and 3 external investors whose combined capital made Grandview Plaza possible. City officials included Building Inspector Janet Morrison and Planning Director Robert Clark, both empowered to shut down construction projects that threatened public safety. I arrived last carrying presentation materials that had taken 3 weeks to prepare. Every document was meticulously researched, every accusation supported by irrefutable evidence, every proposed solution tested through detailed engineering analysis. Pierce opened the meeting with smooth confidence, outlining the foundation problems as unfortunate engineering oversights that required innovative solutions from qualified contractors. His presentation implied Thompson Construction lacked competence to handle complex structural challenges while positioning Pierce Development as the logical alternative. Foundation settlement has exceeded acceptable parameters due to inadequate soil preparation, Pierce explained, pointing to photographs of cracked concrete and shifted walls. Thompson Construction specifications failed to account for documented soil conditions. Harold's face reddened with suppressed anger, but he remained silent as Pierce continued the systematic destruction of his company's reputation. Pierce Development has reviewed the project specifications and believes remediation is possible through advanced engineering techniques that require specialized expertise. Madison looked confused and frightened as Pierce's presentation made clear that she was personally responsible for approving construction methods she couldn't possibly have understood. Patricia maintained her composed expression while watching her daughter absorb public humiliation designed to facilitate Pierce's takeover plans. However, Pierce continued, Thompson Construction's financial resources may be insufficient to implement necessary corrections. Pierce Development is prepared to assume project responsibility if Riverside Development prefers to work with contractors who possess appropriate capabilities. That was my cue. "Excuse me," I said, standing from my corner chair. "Before any decisions are made regarding Thompson Construction's capabilities, I believe this board should understand the real reasons behind Grandview Plaza's foundation problems." Pierce's confident smile faltered slightly. "I'm sorry, who are you?" "Genevieve Thompson, former project manager for Thompson Construction and current independent consultant investigating construction fraud in regional development projects." I walked to the front of the room and connected my laptop to the projection system displaying the first slide of a presentation that would destroy Pierce Development forever. Over the past 3 weeks, I've documented systematic corporate espionage designed to destroy Thompson Construction while enriching Pierce Development through fraudulent competitive practices. The room fell silent as financial records appeared on the projection screen, showing Patricia's secret partnership in Pierce Development and her unauthorized transfers of company funds. Patricia's composed mask cracked. "Genevieve, what are you doing?" Exposing the truth about who's really responsible for Grandview Plaza's problems. The next slide contained email exchanges between Pierce and Patricia, discussing Thompson's confidential bid specifications and strategic plans. Conversations that proved Pierce had inside information, allowing him to underbid Thompson's proposals while knowing exactly which corners could be safely cut. Harold's face went pale as he read Patricia's messages, detailing Thompson's internal operations, client relationships, and financial vulnerabilities. 30 years of marriage collapsing in real time as he discovered his wife's systematic betrayal. These communications demonstrate that Pierce Development's competitive advantages resulted from industrial espionage rather than superior business practices, I explained to the stunned board members. Pierce attempted to interrupt. "These allegations are completely unfounded." "Are they?" I switched to the next slide containing bank records showing Patricia's financial transfers and Pierce Development's corresponding deposits, because financial documentation supports every allegation I'm making. Madison looked horrified as she realized she had been an unwitting pawn in her mother's scheme. "Patricia, you've been stealing from Dad's company." Patricia's desperate attempt at damage control collapsed into anger. "I've been protecting this family's financial future while Harold runs the company into bankruptcy through outdated management approaches. Protecting the family by destroying the business that supports it?" Harold's voice shook with betrayal and rage. I continued the presentation, revealing Pierce's plan to steal Thompson's clients through confidential information provided by Patricia. The scope of their conspiracy stunned even board members who thought they had seen every variety of corporate corruption. But industrial espionage represents only part of this scheme. I said, switching to technical drawings of Grandview Plaza's foundation specifications. The foundation problems weren't accidental engineering oversights. They resulted from deliberate sabotage designed to create project failures that would justify transferring contracts to Pierce Development. The engineering analysis showed how Pierce had used his inside knowledge of Thompson's specifications to recommend cost-cutting modifications that would inevitably cause structural problems. Patricia had convinced Harold to implement those changes by presenting them as her own suggestions for improving profit margins. Pierce knew exactly which specifications could be modified without immediately obvious consequences. I explained. The foundation problems were designed to appear several months after construction completion, destroying Thompson's reputation while creating opportunities for Pierce Development to acquire contracts as the remediation specialist. Pierce's face had turned ashen as his carefully constructed scheme unraveled in front of investors and city officials who could destroy his career with a few phone calls. "These accusations are ridiculous," he protested weakly. "I had no involvement in Thompson Construction's engineering decisions." I displayed recorded conversations between Pierce and Patricia discussing specific ways to sabotage Thompson's projects while maintaining plausible deniability. Pierce's voice was clearly audible as he outlined strategies for creating foundation problems that would appear to result from incompetent engineering. The Riverside board members exchanged meaningful glances as they realized their $50 million project had been sabotaged by the very contractor they were considering as Thompson's replacement. Fortunately, I continued, Grandview Plaza's foundation problems are completely solvable through proper engineering techniques. The final section of my presentation outlined detailed remediation strategies that would stabilize the foundation, prevent future settlement, and restore structural integrity within the project's original timeline. Solutions that demonstrated sophisticated technical knowledge Pierce Development obviously lacked. Thompson Construction possesses the expertise necessary to implement these corrections successfully. The question is whether Pierce Development's fraudulent interference has created legal liabilities that prevent Riverside Development from working with qualified contractors. Sarah Chen, Riverside's CFO, spoke first. Mr. Pierce, these accusations suggest Pierce Development obtained confidential bid information through corporate espionage. Pierce's desperation was obvious as he struggled to craft responses that might limit his legal exposure. Any information I received came through normal industry networking. Industrial espionage is a federal crime. Building Inspector Morrison interrupted. If these allegations are accurate, this project involves criminal fraud that requires immediate law enforcement investigation. Patricia attempted to minimize her role while distancing herself from Pierce. I may have mentioned general business conditions during casual conversations, but I never intended to facilitate corporate espionage. $200,000 in unauthorized transfers suggests intentions beyond casual conversation. Harold said, his voice shaking with controlled fury. Madison looked devastated as she finally understood how thoroughly she had been manipulated. I never wanted this responsibility. I told you I didn't understand construction management, but you insisted I was capable of learning. You are capable, I said gently, but leadership requires honesty about personal limitations and willingness to delegate technical decisions to qualified professionals. Pierce Development's investors began whispering among themselves as they calculated financial losses from association with criminal fraud schemes. Pierce's career was finished regardless of legal outcomes. Based on the evidence presented, Michael Rodriguez announced, Riverside Development is terminating all relationships with Pierce Development immediately. Legal counsel will determine appropriate civil and criminal remedies for fraud and industrial espionage. Pierce's final attempt at damage control involved throwing Patricia under the bus. Any inappropriate information came from Patricia Thompson without my solicitation. I had no knowledge of unauthorized fund transfers. Patricia's composure finally shattered completely. You're lying. You planned every aspect of this scheme and convinced me Harold's business was doomed anyway. Their public argument provided additional evidence of conspiracy while demonstrating that honor among thieves was purely fictional. Harold's quiet voice cut through their recriminations. Genevieve, can Thompson Construction actually fix the foundation problems within the original timeline? Yes, the technical solutions require expertise we possess and Pierce Development lacks. Remediation will cost approximately $200,000, coincidentally the amount Patricia transferred to Pierce Development, which Pierce Development will reimburse through legal settlement or criminal restitution, Sarah Chen added grimly. The meeting concluded with Riverside Development confirming Thompson Construction's continued role as primary contractor, while legal authorities began investigating Pierce Development for fraud, conspiracy, and corporate espionage. Patricia and Pierce left separately, both facing criminal charges that would destroy their personal and professional futures. Madison remained behind, tearfully apologizing to Harold while acknowledging her complete lack of qualifications for construction management. Justice had been served with surgical precision. The immediate aftermath felt like watching a controlled demolition in reverse systematic reconstruction of relationships, reputations, and responsibilities that Pierce's conspiracy had damaged or destroyed. Patricia's arrest made regional news within 48 hours. Corporate fraud, industrial espionage, and embezzlement charges carried potential prison sentences that her expensive attorney couldn't minimize through plea negotiations. Pierce faced identical charges, plus additional counts of conspiracy to commit fraud and attempted extortion. Harold spent 2 days in the hospital following what doctors diplomatically called stress-related cardiac episodes. The combination of Patricia's betrayal, Thompson Construction's near bankruptcy, and Madison's public humiliation had pushed his cardiovascular system beyond acceptable limits. I sat beside his hospital bed Tuesday morning watching monitors track his gradually stabilizing vital signs while we discussed Thompson Construction's future without the wife who had tried to destroy everything he had built. "I should have seen the signs," he said, staring at ceiling tiles that probably reminded him of construction projects where attention to detail meant the difference between success and failure. Nobody expects treachery from their spouse of 30 years. The company transfers the mysterious client meetings Patricia's sudden interest in business operations she had ignored for decades, all obvious warnings I was too trusting to recognize. Harold's self-recrimination was painful to witness. 30 years of marriage based on assumptions of loyalty and shared commitment demolished by evidence of systematic betrayal designed to profit from his destruction. Patricia made deliberate choices to prioritize personal gain over family welfare, I said. Her deception doesn't reflect your judgment or trustworthiness. Madison visited that afternoon bringing flowers and tearful apologies for her role in Patricia's scheme. Her genuine remorse was heartbreaking, a young woman who had discovered that her mother's confidence in her abilities was actually manipulation designed to facilitate corporate espionage. "I never wanted the business," she admitted, collapsing into the uncomfortable hospital chair. "Art history prepared me for museum work or teaching, not construction management. But Patricia insisted I had natural leadership qualities that just needed development." "You do have leadership qualities," I assured her. "Leadership means recognizing when you lack expertise in specific areas and delegating decisions to qualified people. Like you. Like many people. Thompson Construction employs experienced professionals whose knowledge covers every aspect of successful project management." Madison's relief was obvious as we discussed alternative career paths that might utilize her actual talents rather than forcing her into roles she was unprepared to handle. Social work appealed to her interest in helping people navigate complex systems, while her communication skills would serve nonprofit organizations effectively. Thompson Construction's employees gathered Friday morning to hear Harold address Patricia's arrest and the company's financial situation. 23 people whose livelihoods depended on steady work deserved honest explanations rather than corporate euphemisms that disguised ugly realities. Eddie Sanchez, our most senior electrician, spoke for the group. "We know the company's been struggling, but we didn't realize outside forces were working to destroy us. What happens now?" "Thompson Construction survives," Harold announced. "Genevieve will assume operational control as president and CEO, while I focus on rebuilding client relationships damaged by recent events." The promotion felt simultaneously inevitable and surreal. 5 years of preparation for leadership responsibilities that Patricia had tried to deny me, now offered under circumstances none of us could have anticipated. Pierce Development's fraud provides grounds for substantial financial recovery, I explained to the assembled workers. Restitution payments will stabilize company finances while we rebuild our reputation through successful project completion. Tom Bailey, our master carpenter, raised concerns about client confidence after weeks of negative publicity. "Are customers going to trust Thompson Construction after everything that's happened?" Riverside Development has confirmed their continued partnership based on our technical expertise and integrity. Other clients will judge us through project performance rather than media coverage. The Grandview Plaza remediation became Thompson Construction's most visible opportunity to demonstrate competence under my leadership. Every day of work was scrutinized by city inspectors, Riverside executives, and media representatives, documenting our recovery from Pierce's sabotage. I implemented new project management protocols that combined my technical knowledge with collaborative decision-making processes. Daily progress meetings ensured all team members understood current objectives and potential challenges. Digital documentation systems tracked materials, schedules, and quality control measures that previous chaos had obscured. The foundation repairs required innovative techniques that showcased Thompson Construction's problem-solving capabilities. Instead of expensive excavation and replacement, we used targeted injection methods to stabilize soil conditions while reinforcing existing structures through strategic additions. Completion came 3 days ahead of revised schedules, with quality inspections exceeding municipal standards and cost controls maintaining budget parameters despite remediation complications. Riverside Development satisfaction was obvious as they scheduled tours for potential clients interested in Thompson's services. Pierce Development declared bankruptcy within 6 weeks, unable to maintain operations after losing investor confidence and facing massive legal liabilities. Pierce himself faced federal criminal charges that would likely result in prison time and permanent exclusion from construction industry employment. Patricia's plea negotiations dragged through autumn months as prosecutors weighed evidence against cooperation in related investigations. Community service and financial restitution replaced potential prison sentences, but her reputation was permanently destroyed through detailed media coverage of her corporate espionage. The divorce proceedings were swift and decisive. Harold retained all business assets, while Patricia accepted minimal settlement terms that reflected her criminal culpability rather than marital equity principles. 30 years of shared history reduced to legal documents that parceled out responsibility for destruction she had orchestrated. Madison thrived in her social work graduate program, discovering talents for helping people navigate bureaucratic systems and emotional crises. Her experience as an unwitting pawn in corporate fraud provided unique insights into how intelligent people could be manipulated by those they trusted most. Thompson Construction's reputation recovered faster than I had expected. Industry recognition of our technical expertise, combined with sympathy for the sabotage we had overcome, generated new contracts that exceeded our capacity to handle without additional hiring. Family dinners resumed in November, but with different dynamics that reflected hard-earned wisdom about trust communication and mutual respect. Harold's gratitude for my loyalty was genuine, but unnecessary. Family meant protecting each other from external threats, not competing for individual advantage. The holidays felt strange without Patricia's presence, but also peaceful in ways I hadn't anticipated. Conversations flowed naturally without underlying tensions or hidden agendas. Madison's relief at escaping responsibilities she never wanted was palpable and infectious. Harold's recovery was complete by Christmas, both physically and emotionally. The cardiac episodes had been warnings rather than permanent damage treatable through medication and stress reduction that came naturally with Patricia's removal from his daily life. Thompson Construction ended the year with record revenues and industry recognition that positioned us for continued growth. My innovations in project management and technical problem solving had transformed a struggling family business into a regional leader that attracted skilled workers and prestigious contracts. But the personal transformation felt more significant than professional success. 6 months after Patricia's arrest, Thompson Construction had evolved into something neither Harold nor I had imagined possible. The crisis that nearly destroyed us had actually catalyzed innovations and improvements that made us stronger, more efficient, and more respected than we had ever been under the old family dynamics. My office occupied the corner space Patricia had planned for Madison, overlooking the construction yard, where crews prepared equipment for projects that stretched our capacity in the most gratifying ways. The view reminded me daily of how far we had traveled from those devastating legal documents scattered across the kitchen table. Thompson Construction now employed 38 people, including 6 recent hires, whose specialized skills enhanced our capabilities in emerging markets like sustainable construction and historic renovation. Our reputation for technical excellence and ethical business practices attracted both talented workers and discriminating clients who valued integrity over lowest bid pricing. Harold had transitioned gracefully into an advisory role that utilized his decades of relationship-building experience, while freeing him from operational stresses that had contributed to his cardiac problems. His interactions with long-term clients restored confidence in Thompson's stability and commitment to quality craftsmanship. Madison visited monthly, sharing updates about her graduate studies and social work internships that clearly energized her in ways construction management never could. Her transformation from reluctant business heir to enthusiastic advocate for vulnerable populations demonstrated how destructive it could be to force people into roles that conflicted with their natural talents and interests. "I never thanked you properly for exposing Patricia's scheme before I destroyed Dad's company through incompetence," she said during her March visit. "You weren't incompetent. You were inexperienced in a field that requires years of specialized knowledge. Patricia convinced me that business leadership was just confidence and communication skills. Those qualities matter, but technical expertise provides the foundation that makes leadership effective." Madison's social work supervisor had praised her ability to help clients navigate complex bureaucratic systems while maintaining empathy for their emotional struggles, skills that would have been wasted in construction management but proved invaluable in her chosen profession. Patricia's community service assignment involved teaching basic financial literacy to women transitioning from domestic abuse situations. The irony of someone who had committed financial fraud educating vulnerable people about money management was not lost on anyone involved, but her victims reported that Patricia's lectures were surprisingly effective. "Maybe she learned something about the consequences of betraying trust," Harold speculated during one of our weekly business reviews. "Or maybe she's just good at explaining financial concepts. Either way, she's contributing something positive for the first time in years." Patricia and Harold communicated only through attorneys regarding divorce finalization and restitution payments, but Madison maintained limited contact with her mother despite everything that had happened. Family relationships were complicated in ways that simple concepts of justice couldn't fully address. Pierce's federal trial had concluded with convictions on all charges and a 5-year prison sentence that effectively ended his career in construction or related industries. His elaborate scheme to destroy Thompson Construction while enriching himself had collapsed spectacularly, leaving him with nothing except criminal records and permanent reputation damage. Thompson Construction's success attracted attention from industry publications that featured articles about our innovative project management techniques and recovery from corporate sabotage. The publicity generated consulting opportunities that allowed me to share problem-solving strategies with other family businesses facing similar challenges. Speaking engagements at construction industry conferences provided platforms for discussing the importance of technical competence, ethical business practices, and family communication in maintaining successful enterprises. My experience resonated with audiences who understood how easily trust could be exploited by those closest to us. The Grandview Plaza project had become a showcase for Thompson's capabilities, winning regional awards for engineering innovation and project management excellence. Riverside Development used our success there to attract additional tenants and investors, creating ongoing partnership opportunities that extended well beyond the original contract. More importantly, the project demonstrated that Thompson Construction could overcome any challenge through technical expertise, collaborative teamwork, and unwavering commitment to quality results. Those capabilities attracted clients who valued reliability over cost-cutting measures that compromise long-term performance. My romantic relationship with David Chen, Riverside's project architect, had developed gradually through our professional collaboration on Grandview Plaza and subsequent projects. His appreciation for technical competence and ethical integrity provided refreshing contrast to Pierce's manipulative approaches and Patricia's casual dishonesty. Our engagement announcement in the local business journal symbolized Thompson Construction's transformation from a family business torn apart by betrayal to a thriving enterprise built on mutual respect and shared values. David understood that my career ambitions were essential to my identity rather than obstacles to traditional relationship expectations. Thompson Construction's new mission statement emphasized integrity, innovation, and community investment as core values that guided every business decision. No longer would family relationships or personal preferences override professional qualifications and ethical considerations in determining company leadership. Employee ownership programs and profit-sharing arrangements ensured that Thompson's success benefited everyone who contributed to our achievements rather than simply enriching family members. Workers like Eddie and Tom now had financial stakes in company performance that motivated excellence while providing retirement security. The annual company picnic in June felt like celebration of genuine family rather than obligation-based gathering. Employees brought spouses and children who understood that Thompson Construction represented more than just employment. It was a community committed to supporting each other's success and well-being. Harold's health remained excellent under reduced stress conditions and regular medical monitoring that caught potential problems before they became serious. His pride in Thompson's transformation was obvious, but never overwhelming, allowing me to develop my own leadership style without constant comparison to his approaches. As I stood in my office late on a Friday evening reviewing plans for our largest project ever, a $12 million mixed-use development that would define downtown revitalization for the next decade, I reflected on the journey that had brought Thompson Construction from near bankruptcy to regional prominence. The devastation of discovering Patricia's betrayal had seemed insurmountable at the time. Learning that my own mother had systematically undermined my contributions while planning to destroy my father's life work felt like the collapse of everything I believed about family loyalty and shared values. But crisis had revealed strengths I hadn't known I possessed and opportunities that comfortable circumstances would never have created. Defending Thompson Construction from Pierce's conspiracy had required strategic thinking, technical innovation, and personal courage that transformed me from dismissed daughter to respected industry leader. The experience taught me that worthiness couldn't be bestowed by others or stolen through their denial. My contributions to Thompson's success had always been valuable regardless of Patricia's refusal to acknowledge them. Pierce's fraud had ultimately failed because genuine expertise couldn't be replicated through stolen information and manipulative scheming. Family relationships required honesty, communication, and mutual respect to survive challenges that tested everyone's commitment to shared values. Harold's willingness to acknowledge his mistakes and accept my leadership had made our reconciliation possible, while Patricia's continued justification of her betrayal had made forgiveness impossible. But perhaps the most important lesson was that justice didn't always require punishment or revenge. Exposing Pierce's conspiracy had protected Thompson Construction and restored my rightful place in the family business, but it had also provided Patricia and Madison with opportunities to discover their authentic selves, rather than the roles they had been manipulating others to accept. Madison's happiness in social work demonstrated that she was never meant for construction management, regardless of Patricia's ambitions. Patricia's community service might eventually lead to genuine understanding of how her actions had damaged people who trusted her. The business world needed more companies like Thompson Construction Enterprises, built on technical competence, ethical integrity, and genuine concern for employee welfare rather than short-term profit maximization or family politics that prioritized relationships over qualifications. My MBA graduation photo now hung in the company lobby beside awards for project excellence and community service, symbolizing Thompson Construction's commitment to professional development and educational achievement. The daughter who was just good with her hands had proven that intelligence manifested in many ways, including the ability to solve complex problems through practical application of theoretical knowledge. As I locked the office and headed home to plan the weekend with David, I felt grateful for everything that had happened, even Patricia's betrayal, which had ultimately freed me to become the leader Thompson Construction needed, and the person I was meant to be. Sometimes the most painful experiences provide the greatest opportunities for growth if we possess the courage to transform crisis into catalyst for positive change. The family business that had nearly been destroyed by treachery and manipulation had emerged stronger, more successful, and more ethical than ever before. And I had discovered that my worthiness had never depended on others' recognition. It had always been evident through my actions, my integrity, and my unwavering commitment to doing what was right, regardless of personal cost. That knowledge was worth more than any inheritance or recognition anyone else could have given me. Have you ever faced a situation where family members underestimated your abilities or tried to undermine your contributions to shared goals? How did you handle being dismissed or overlooked by people who should have supported your success? I'd love to hear your experiences in the comments below, and if this story resonated with you, please like, subscribe, and share it with others who might find inspiration in Genevieve's journey from betrayal to triumph. Thank you for following this story of family business and the power of standing up for yourself when others try to diminish your worth. Remember that your value isn't determined by others' recognition. It's proven through your actions, your integrity, and your commitment to doing what's right, even when it's difficult.